firms from different countries are increasingly able to invoice trade in euros, yet most of the primary commodities are still priced in US dollars. Trade invoicing means that each side of the trade would rather utilize its own currency to avoid exchange costs and uncertainty.
The share of the euro as one of the main currencies in international trade has decreased to 37.2% from 37.6% from last year, much smaller than the shares of the two other major currencies, namely the US dollar and the Japanese yen. The euro is considered as one of the most used vehicle in bulk transactions worldwide, for cross rates are rarely traded in practice.
The long-term debts, also known as bonds, that has been issued in euros had been annually increasing since the euro was launched. Europe can now claim its fair share of the market, for the European national bond markets have been promptly unified into a single European market, whose debt does not differ markedly from that of the dollar market bonds.
The euro share in foreign exchange reserves has made some modest progress since its creation, while central banks hold foreign exchange reserves underpin trust in their currency and the need to intervene in foreign exchange markets.
Kosovo and Montenegro have already euroized. That is, they have unilaterally adopted the euro as their own currency, but they are not part of the euro system yet. There are also 40 currencies as of now that have adopted the euro as their anchor currency, and 35 of these use the euro as their only anchor. An anchor currency, by the way, is a currency to which another currency is more or less rigidly tied.
The percentage of the total euros that are in circulation outside the euro area has been gradually increasing since the introduction of the euro notes in 2002. Foreign currencies such as the euro for non-euro areas are also sometimes used alongside domestic currency, serving the functions of means of payment, unit of account, and store of value.
The launching of the euro, according to some Europeans, also meant challenging the dominance of the dollar, which is most likely driven by political sentiments. But on the other hand, the ECB stated that it will neither encourage nor discourage the possible international role of the euro, because all in all, the economic benefits of having a world currency are quite modest. And that's it for today's headlines. We'll be back after a short break.
Until recently, capital mobility has not been regarded as such a good idea among the members of the European Union. However, since the implementation of the Single European Act of 1986, all forms of capital movement has been allowed inside the EU. The normal functioning of market economy requires capital to be invested in activities that yield the highest rewards. Capital controls, however, lower the allocative efficiency of the European economy. To understand this point, we use the simple framework that allows us to organize our way of thinking about the economic consequences of capital market integration. Let's take a closer look. In this framework, we suppose that there are only two nations, home and foreign, and that initially, capital flows are not allowed between them. We also assume that these nations initially have different returns to capital. To keep things simple, we suppose that there is only one good and it is produced by both nations using capital and labor. The MPK curve in this diagram shows how the marginal product of capital declines as the total amount of capital employed increases. Thus, the addition of more capital increases the overall output, but each additional unit of capital adds less output than the previous one. If the capital stock in home is given by K0, then the equilibrium marginal product of capital in home will be R0. By the usual logic of competition, the outcome is that competitive firms pay R0 and all capital is employed. The same goes true with the foreign nation. Marginal product of capital declines as the total amount of capital employed increases. KO is the capital stock, and R asterisk 0 is the equilibrium marginal product of capital. Point A represents the returns of capital movements from foreign to home that are equalized. Thus, the resulting capital flow and the common reward is represented by R apostrophe. Notice that the capital movement has raised the return in the sending nation and lowered it in the receiving nation. Who wins and who loses from this capital movement? What are the overall effects on native workers and capital owners? To answer these questions, we see this diagram. We note that the area under the MPK curve gives total home output. Adding up all the heights of the MPK curve at each point yields the area under the curve. The total earnings of home capital is just the equilibrium reward R0 times the amount of capital K0, while the labor receives all the output that is not paid to capital. In our simple no capital mobility to free capital mobility policy experiment, the native capital owners in home lose since the reward has fallen from R0 to R1, the amount of the loss measured by the rectangle A. Home labor increases its earnings by area A plus the triangle B. The total economic impact on home citizens is positive and equal to the triangle B. Another way of saying that home gains from capital mobility is to note that the extra capital that flows in raises total output in home by the areas B plus C plus D plus E. But the payments to the new capital only equals areas C plus D plus E. Correspondingly, foreign output drops by D plus E, while the capital remaining in foreign sees its rewards rise from R0 to R apostrophe. The size of this gain is shown by rectangle F, which is the change in R times the amount of capital left in foreign after the integration. Foreign labor sees its earnings drop by D plus F. Combining all these losses and gains, the foreign factors of production that remain in foreign lose overall by an amount measured by the triangle D. However, if we count the welfare of foreign factor owners, including the capital that is now working in home, the conclusion is reversed. Total gains to foreign capital are C plus D plus F, while the loss to foreign labor is D plus F. Foreign gains from the capital outflow by an amount equal to the triangle C. In short, while capital flows create winners and losers in both nations, collectively, both nations gain from the movement of capital. Thus, the effect of capital market integration to allocation efficiency.
And there you have it. Back to you, coffee mates.
Thanks for the informative analysis, Sai.
Now it's time for